Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Rise and Shine Early Evening with Rico D. And I'm so glad that I have this opportunity to again use this platform to further spoken word poetry and just poetry in general. So again, we're going to be reading A Little Guard Time for Men, and we're going to talk about safety in numbers. Where there is no guidance, a people fails. But in abundance of counselors, there is safety. There is truth to the old saying, it takes a village to raise a child. Parents can easily fall into the trap of believing that they alone must provide protection and instruction for their children. But living this way robs kids of experiencing the richness of many voices. We are called to be both discerning and generous with the guidance of children. We should recognize the children that God has placed in our lives and be part of their village. Then we set an example for Christian community and help their parents to provide a buffet of positive influence for their children. We are called to be a blessing to both our friends and their children. God, thank you for the opportunity to be a positive voice who speaks into the life of children. I pray you will bless their families that I can influence by my words and actions. Through your spirit, please use me to back up the things you are teaching through their parents. And again, our hearts go out to the latest mass shooting in Nashville. The words just can't express just how we are feeling and how we definitely need some better gun laws, need better reform. But because the right is in the pockets of the NRA, they believe more in protecting them than they do their own kids. But that's another story. So what we're going to do for you today is the poem called Conflicted. And it goes like this. Because so much violence has been inflicted upon us over the years, and now it appears that I'm so forever conflicted about what my response to my oppressor should be, since my silence against their violence has been misconstrued as consent. And ever since, and in my mind, I find that it needs to be redefined, because it's a formula that hasn't worked since the 50s, the 60s. Even today, when these principles are applied, our inalienable rights are still denied, as police brutality is justified, as the leader of the insurgents is acquitted because he benefited from the fact that his accusers were losers, because in the end they did not have enough votes to win impeachment, which meant the mockery of democracy doesn't circumvent the hypocrisy that has their eyes back on me. As I'm still fighting for equality because so much violence has been inflicted, I'm forever conflicted about what my response to my oppressor should be. Does my silence equal consent? It is meant for them to kill us at will, as we temper our responses with tired old cliches that get blown away with promises filled by AKs and sidearms, as they empty clips into justice, as the substance hoped for shapes only us, as our cries continue to be ignored. Therefore, other options have to be explored, as revolution is indeed the solution. There is no refuting that. In fact, without it, the attacks on blacks will continue, of course, unless we meet their force with equal or greater force. And since we are the descendants of Hammurabi, it should be easy for us to adopt this philosophy, using our violence against their violence, breaking our silence until we are free, making the ideals of democracy a reality instead of a farce that keeps on tearing us apart, because it's indeed truly a fallacy if we think our oppressor really wants to make it easy for all of us to be free. And that was conflicted. And what other one should we do? Let's see. What about this one? Hold on so I can get it up. Always some technical difficulties, so bear with me. And this is In the Vagina of Life. In the vagina of life, something wasn't quite right. Her IUD became an IED, blowing up the stereotypes, becoming a beacon for women's rights, as bouncing Bettys were poised and ready to defend both the inner and outer perimeters, as the parameters of her thoughts need protecting, because equality kept neglecting her and denying her access, and that because she wore a dress, she was viewed as weak. So when she decided to speak, she wasn't meek or mild, but bold, beautiful, and loud. She was boisterous, serious, and nefarious, as she delivered her message of equal rights to the crowd, as onlookers and naysayers feared her words and what she was saying, displaying her defiance, creating alliances nationally, internationally, and locally, as she vocally was challenging the status quo. As her reputation started to grow, she did the intensity in her rhetoric. As it began to intensify, she no longer could hide what she was feeling in the inside, and that she had the propensity to be violent. She could never be silent from where she stood. She knew that it wouldn't do the movement any good. Using only nonviolent tactics, the situation is drastic. It's now or never. Either we fall apart or stand together. See, she was a trailblazer, a hellraiser, someone history could not forget. She was a hero, a suffragette. So there it is. And it is fitting. This is almost the last day of Women Empowerment Month. So that's shout out to all of the sheroes and the trailblazers. And so, let's see. I think we're going to do one more. Let's see what that's going to be. Let's see. Let's see. Active shooter. Some might think this might be inappropriate, but it is what it is. There's an active shooter in my soul, adding more bullet holes in between the shootings. There is looting, as the looter has been identified. Understand that this elaborate plan must have had an inside man, but as far as I can tell, there is no Denzel or Samuel, because the situation is drastic. This will require special weapons and tactics, because their tactics they won't try, because the active shooter is a black guy. That's why if he was white, they wouldn't end his life. Even if he had hostages, they would give him plenty of chances to live, as there is no way to turn this from a negative to a positive. As the shooter has barricaded himself in the building, they can't shake the feeling that some people are going to die tonight, as the shooter might take his own life as he hides inside. He's trying to decide which hostage to kill first. So first, he took out hate and released love. The next one he wanted to get rid of was bigotry in his whole family, so that freedom could reign vicariously, living through democracy. He then placed his knee on the neck of police brutality, who in actuality wanted to come inside because the active shooter murdered those hostages named homicide and genocide. Their deaths left them all petrified, as equality could no longer be denied, as it was now free to be embraced by every race equally. Now a few hostages remained. These were the ones that caused the most pain again and again, as his soon-to-be self-inflicted wounds remained haunting him over and over again. They will soon have him conflicted again. How can this be fixed? How can he fix it? Thoughts are racing a mile a minute. How should we end it? How will he decide? Death by cop is still suicide. And so, with that, we are going to end this broadcast. And this will be available within the next hour or so, depending on the processing. And so how I end every podcast is with this. Aim for the moon and the sun. If you miss, you will still be among the stars. Peace in hair grease. Until the next podcast. God bless.